The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Seven minutes past 12 midday. Faster my good afternoon. Wednesday lunchtime on the Isle of Man. On Mannin Line, open line today, so call 66 13 68 to get on the air, to have your say. Text 166 177 or WhatsApp 166 177. You can email studio@manxradio.com. Anyway, the floor's yours. What's on your mind today? David's first with us today. Hi, hello, David.
Hello there. Local authority elections.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't know there was one going on in Peel.
How come?
Out of the four candidates, the 8 candidates, only 4 of them have put any form of leaflets out. They didn't deliver themselves, and it wasn't an agent of theirs that delivered them. Post office delivered one, and somebody was delivering the other 3.
Right. Have you had anybody knock on your door?
Nobody's knocked on the door, and most of these people, I have no idea who they are.
Right. I mean, are you in the centre? Are you in Old Peel, New Peel, or are you in...
No, I'm up Ballacquain area.
Right. Oh, Posh Peel.
Well, but the thing is, we don't know them from Adam. You know, they're supposed to be canvassing for our support, not us going out looking for them.
Interesting, last night there was a hustings, there was a get-together at Ramsey Grammar School where everybody could see and touch and feel and chat to the candidates yesterday. Would you like to have seen something like that in Peel?
Well, there might have been, for all I know, but they don't seem to advertise anything other than maybe something on Facebook or whatever.
Oh, no, I think there was I think it was last night at the Corran Hall. There was a hustings last night. You didn't hear about that?
No.
So, I mean, overall, what's your impression then of the upcoming election tomorrow?
I think it's going to be a very low turnout again, and then we'll have to have an inquiry into why nobody bothered to turn out. Well, if nobody knows who they are and they're not making the effort to come out and canvass support, how can they expect people to come out?
Right. Okay. Well, I'm sure if they're listening, they'll know. They'll know that. So, hang on. You said how many leaflets did you get? How many manifestos did you get?
4.
4. Okay.
Out of 8, I think.
Let me see. It's Katrina Baptist, Frank Crompton, Alistair Cubban-Wood, Stuart Hardingham, Sharon Lambert, Christine Muckton, and William Ateneo Castaigne. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 candidates, and you got how many again?
I've got 4.
Right. Okay. Are you going to be voting tomorrow?
Well, how can I vote for people I don't know?
Oh, well.
And I don't know what they believe in. They are supposed to be finding out what the people of Peel want, not just what their agenda is themselves.
Right.
We're going to end up with a little clique influenced by a vocal minority, and the rest of the Peel, doesn't matter.
What do you want to see happen in Peel then?
Well, I would like some communication to start with.
And I mean, is there anything about Peel that you think needs mending, or anything that you would like to see done better?
If the candidates had actually walked around Peel, they would have seen some of the problems, like where there's pavements damaged, or the roads rough, or even things like dog fouling, or people's hedges growing out over the paths and stuff. Just simple things like that. And
well, you would have thought, David, for the number of houses that have been built in Peel over the last 10, 15 years, Peel commissioners should be swimming in money with rates are about £1,000 a house average. So
it's over that.
Let's say just average then. They should be swimming in money in Peel.
Yeah. But they're going to waste an awful lot on this community centre down on the old swimming pool bath site. That I haven't talked to anybody that's in favour of it. But they had a meeting, and they had 200 people in favour of it. Out of how many thousand live in Peel? You know, and the way the world is, the economic uncertainty at the moment.
Are you happy with Michael Street, David?
No, it's dying on its feet. Since we've lost the bank, Peel is just dying on its feet.
Well,
you go down the street nowadays,
banks,
you hardly...
It was more than one bank, wasn't it? It was Lloyd's at the bottom of Michael Street as well.
Yeah, but, you know, you go down Michael Street now and you hardly see anybody. And, like, is there 6 or 7 shops closed or for let?
Well, I mean, that could be down to the landlords, couldn't it? Because if they're wanting rents that aren't sustainable. But, I mean, something somewhere's got to happen with Michael Street, don't you think?
Well, yes, but we'll probably end up just wasting a load of money putting block pavias down or some fancy street furniture and not actually, you know, solve the problem.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sure they've heard you, David.
There's just one more point I've got.
Yeah, by all means.
I always thought by law, the candidates, there had to be a notice in the papers of the election and the candidates' names, their proposers and seconders, and the returning officer's name. It hasn't happened this year.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Wow.
So is it actually a legal election?
Well, I'm sure the returning officer is checking that up as we speak. All right.
Well,
Appreciate
I hope
it. So. Yeah, thanks for calling today.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. 13 minutes past 12. If you live in Peel and you're eligible to vote, I just wonder what you think. And indeed, if you were at the Corran Hall last night, I'd like to hear what your impression is. Obviously, we're not endorsing any candidates. There are 7 candidates. 8, of course, that includes Ray Harmer. So there's Ray Harmer, Katrina Baptist, Frank Crompton, Alistair Cubbenwood, Stuart Hardingham, Sharon Lambert, Christine Muckton, and William Ateneo Costain. They're the 8 candidates. So any thoughts on this? And if you are from Peel, then... I mean, apart from Michael Street, which, I mean, Lower Peel seems to be doing okay. Any thoughts? Or do you like Peel the way it is? Peel has such a distinctive character, different to everywhere else on the Isle of Man. It really is a charming place. But do you think there's anything that the commissioners should be doing in the future? Obviously, when the election's over, we'll be having them on Mannin Line. Certainly, they're invited on Mannin Line to come and tell us what they aim to do for the future of Peel. And Howard's with us as well. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. I've just walked in the door here and I've just heard the tail end of that chap saying there's a lack of visits from candidates. They seem to be just taking, he's quite right, they're taking for granted they're going to do what they want, not what the people want. And that's been a large percentage of the problem, that the candidates are getting in with their agenda and they're pushing that forward as opposed to going round. In actual fact, I'd forgotten all about the voting until this chap mentioned it. It's tomorrow, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. That's how interesting the voting for the council has become. I don't even know who our previous ones were that were elected in. We've never seen them, not heard from them. I think the leader of the council is one of them, and we haven't heard from her since the day she was elected 2 terms ago. But we have had one person around, which I knew would come round because this particular person is very interested in what goes on in the political scene. But the other 2 candidates, we got a piece of paper through the door, and that was it. We've not seen hide nor hair of them. Now, these are the people who are putting their names forward to support the people of, I'll say, South Douglas. But how many of those people can come on your show and say how many visits they've had apart from an individual? But there's been nothing here at all. And this year, I believe, I don't know, it's in the car park somewhere down by the pub, a temporary voting office. Lord knows what it is. It could be a shed, could be a caravan, could be
Well, I
anything.
think they're putting... there are two residents in Douglas South can vote in any of the polling stations within the area. So I think there's the same in Patrick as well. So you can choose an alternative location, a bit like...
Yeah. I appreciate that, but previously it was always over here in the school. Used to go into after the, but I suppose now the school lessons, etc., they won't be able to accommodate having the voting chamber in there, the voting area. But that chap was quite right. The people who are putting their names forward, and people are going to say, well, why don't you put your name forward? At my age, I should be down at Pensioners Hall, not the Town Hall. But the people who are putting their names forward have in their head that they're going to do wonders for the people of the South Douglas. But if they don't come and see what is going on, what the people want, how do they know? It's perfectly simple. It's their own agenda. And that's the unfortunate part about it. And they'll go through the next 3 years sitting there on their own agenda and doing nothing for the people of the particular area.
I mean, really, Howard, do you think, that would suggest they're, a bit unself-aware. I mean, surely anybody who's going for election for commissioners or council know that they're not going to change the world, that, their job is to make life a little easier for the residents of whichever community they're representing.
Well, they're elected to look after the interests of the people that... collectively, Douglas, shall we say, we'll use that as an example. Collectively, they are elected to represent the people of that city, they call it now. And if they can't be bothered coming round to see the people that are going to put them into power, well, they can't be self-effacing. They have this particular thing in their mind that they're going to do wonders. But perhaps people don't want those wonders. They want something more simplistic. And they just want an easier life without the troubles and tribes. And there we have the last one, and I believe Claire Wells is standing down as, excuse me, I could say Chief Minister.
Yeah.
What do you call her? There's
council
the senior
leader.
person in the council.
Yes, council leader.
She's standing down. This is only after 2 sessions. And she's gone out now and leaving indirectly a £3 million plus debt on Douglas.
Have you had any manifestos, Howard?
Yes, yes, I had one from
Don't
a
name
new
it.
chap.
Yeah.
One from, I think it was an existing chap, and one from, well, he used to be a councillor, and he's coming back as a councillor.
Okay.
And I won't mention names, but people will know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because, as you say, as Ben said to me, he said, it doesn't want to be seen to be pushing it.
No, I mean, we're under representation of the people, so obviously we simply can't promote any of that. Apart from the fact you will have heard every candidate's been offered an interview and they've been broadcast during the news. So we have heard from candidates throughout this election build-up as well. But, I mean, what do you think? I mean, in terms of the turnout, it seems sometimes very dispiritingly low. So, I mean, what can be done to get more people out to vote?
They've only got themselves to blame, because this is a classic example of nobody coming to your house. Now, we've had one particular manifesto for over a month, and we haven't even had a backup on it saying, I'm sorry, but I've missed you previously, and is there anything particular? There's just a piece of paper that's cost them a few quid down at a printing works, shoved through your door, and as far as they're concerned, that's as much as they have to do. And then, as you rightly say, the people just I can't be bothered with him, he's never bothered with us. But unfortunately, they're going to get in, and they're going to go down their own route, regardless of whether you want them or you don't. But, as I say, the council now, they're thinning themselves out, and they're walking away and leaving the ratepayers of Douglas with at least £3 million worth of debt, which has got to be serviced somehow, and that will be through the rates. That's the gardens down there, and £1.5 million to put a fancy pattern on there, Shawsbrook car park. And Lord knows what will happen there, because that's, as you said before, that's directly above the new old flats in Lord Street that have now just recently been sold. So is it possible that somewhere in the system they're doing that up, they're going to flog that and all to the people that bought the flats?
We'll see. Okay.
So, but it's a shameful turn that the candidates, that's all it amounts to, a shameful turn of events, that the candidates for the town council, bar one in South Douglas, have not knocked on our door.
Okay, all right. Appreciate it, Howard. Thanks for calling today.
Take care. Bye now.
Okay, the South Ward will see 4 candidates vying for 3 seats. The Douglas South's got 4 candidates going for 3 vacancies. They are Stephen Crellin, David Cretney, Carol Van Elst and William Smedley. Douglas North and East are uncontested. Falk Horning, Janet Tomini, Peter Washington, Devon Watson, Fenella Logan and Susan Kewen are in uncontested. And, of course, it is Falk Horning, Mrs. Tomini, Mr. Washington, Mr. Watson will continue their role as councillors. The Central Ward will have Natalie Byron-Tier and Mark Wheeler, but a by-election will take place to fill the remaining seat, the vacant seat. Natalie Byron-Tier is currently Mayor of Douglas. So the voting is tomorrow, and by the way, we will have reporters out from 6 o'clock onwards. We'll have live reports from the counts at the elections. There are elections in Castletown, Douglas South, Patrick, Peel and Ramsey. Simon Richardson will be live with the Manx Radio microphone in Castletown. Christian Jones will be in Douglas. Lewis Foster will be in Patrick. Beth Espy in Peel. Emma Slater is going to be in Ramsey, and I think the whole thing's going to be handled by Siobhan Fletcher. So that's tomorrow. All the local elections will be tomorrow from 6 o'clock, and Mike's with us now. Hi, Mike.
Good afternoon, Andy. I live in Peel, and in reference to your first caller,
yeah,
he's lucky because I've had nothing through the post. I've had no visits. I didn't even know about last night until too late. So I've just guessed. I mean, I've got a postal vote, which I've put in, and I've guessed on some of them. I only know 2, because it is, I believe, a civic duty that you should vote, but I have no real idea what's going to happen.
Well, it's interesting. In places like Australia, you get fined if you don't vote. I mean, not only is it a civic duty there's a penalty if you don't vote. So, I mean, would that be a way of getting voting up, if people got fined for not voting?
Well, I believe in it, because unless you do vote, you can't complain. It's as simple as that. And you're getting people coming in on very few votes, so it's just wrong as far as I'm concerned. You asked about the original caller about what he thought of Peel. I mean, I've lived in Peel for nearly 20 years,
yeah,
and I think it's a lovely place to live. But it's gone downhill. It really wants tidying up.
Where particularly, Mike?
Well, I live in Mill Road, and I've got a dog, and I walk the dog twice a day. I used to pick up other people's dog mess. I don't bother anymore. There's so much of it. The place is just untidy, and the whole place could do with a spruce up. I went to Ireland with a friend last year. We did the Wild Atlantic Way. And all these little fishing places along the coast there, they're immaculate because they're pushing it as a tourist thing. And it's a great thing to do. It took us 10 days, averaging 200 miles a day. The people were lovely. They have got a problem with immigration, not of their own fault, but which is killing the tourist industry, unfortunately. but the places were immaculate.
When you say immaculate, Mike, what do you mean? Clean and tidy, well painted, freshly painted? What is it?
Yeah, clean, tidy, people doing gardening, wearing high-vis vests. I don't know whether they were retired or just people out doing it, or whether they were employees of someone, but the whole place was welcoming, and it looked lovely, as well as the fantastic scenery, which changed every day. Every day you thought you'd seen the best view, and then it sort of changed again.
Yeah.
And we could have that on the Isle of Man, but it's not just Peel. There are other places on the Isle of Man as well. It's almost derelict. It's very, very sad. I mean, Peel really does miss Ian Davidson. I know he's not standing again. He did so much for the town. I know some people didn't like him, but since he's gone, there's so much that he tried to organise every year to get people to come to the town, to spend money in the local shops. All right, he's got his own shop, but at the some of the stuff, he always made sure that his van wasn't there, somebody else, so people couldn't say he was doing it to feather his own nest.
Yeah, but there are two sides to progress, aren't there? In that, if something becomes too slick and too kind of organised, and other people will say, well, it looks a bit plastic. I mean, the thing about Peel is it does look very natural, doesn't it? I mean, it's got that charm to it. I mean, I love Peel. And particularly on the summer evening, just as the dusk is falling, it's absolutely magical. But as you say, it's finding that the balance of something being spick and span but not looking plastic.
Well, yeah. Just needs to look clean, tidy. I mean, I can reel off a load of properties that have been empty for as long as I've lived here.
Well, that's another matter, isn't it? Derelict properties.
But they look awful. Somebody needs to do something about it. That's the sort of thing that lowers the tone of the place. I mean, you've got... I've got my own camper. It's parked off-road. And I've got nothing against people having campers. But I asked the commissioner lads when they were redoing the footpath on the hill why they only cut the overhanging undergrowth on the pavement on West Quay at the end of the year. And the comment was, why should we when people in campers are emptying their toilets into the gap between the hill and the pavement?
No, is that right?
That's what the lads told me when I was talking to them. He says, bad enough when we've got to pick up people's dog's mess. He said, but when it's human waste as well.
Oh, good grief.
I mean, I don't know if it's visitors or whether it's locals or whatever. But they said, why should we? And I quite agree with them.
Well, you bet. But, I mean, somebody should be guarding against that. And obviously, there should be sanctions for anybody doing that sort of stuff. That's awful.
Yeah, but I go out regularly with my dog, and I can regularly see fresh dog's mess. Somebody's walked past her. They must know their dog's done it, or unless it's one of these people who let the dog off and it's half a mile in front of them. My dog is always on a lead. When we got her from the MSPCA, they said we'd never get recall because it wasn't done when she was young enough. But even then, I wouldn't let her off the lead. She's a hunting dog. She'd go for whatever she felt like.
Yeah.
But always pick up. And I say I used to pick up other people's just to try and keep it tidier, but there's so much of it, why should I?
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate your call today, Mike, and thanks for bringing those issues. That's certainly something we'll be asking Peel commissioners about regarding those motorhomes. Thanks for calling today.
Cheers.
Good to hear from you. It's 12:30 now on Manx Radio. So tomorrow it's local elections, and we'll have all the information from 6 o'clock. We'll be talking to as many newly elected commissioners as we can get a microphone in front of tomorrow evening, with Simon and Christian and Lewis and Beth and Emma out and about. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. What a turnabout from the Minister that happened when I wasn't listening to Manx Radio regarding selling off the family gold or silver.
Isn't it
to
funny?
Do with housing.
Isn't it funny?
I just wondered whether did she run it past her own officers in a department, that's the DOI, or did she run it past the members in the department? And did she get a negative point of view on that? But when you look at that document, 48 pages long, I couldn't believe some of the statements that are in there where they said it's cost neutral. It was never cost neutral. It was going to cost them an absolute fortune. And what do you do with civil servants who are civil servants? They're not in the private sector. So you give them an opportunity to retire early, go to another job, if there was any around that was suitable for them. And my biggest thing's always been with the DOI and central government is that a housing authority, therefore, they keep saying they're not a landlord. They must be a landlord under the definition of the Act. Everybody else that's got private accommodation becomes a landlord, has to register, but government doesn't. It's a different word. But I wanted to talk quickly about the election because I've been in a few, and I just want to put a little spin to people who were thinking of maybe not voting. I'd encourage you to vote, because otherwise you're never going to get somebody you get to know in the future. I remember donkeys years ago when my parents were still alive, I loaned from my father 200 quid to pay for me manifestos and doing a postage in them days around that particular area. And that was onken when I was young, impetuous and stuff like that. And I'd encourage people, all the candidates may not be running around all the time. They may have jobs as well. They forget about people who have jobs. They've got to earn a living. And I remember taking time off in my holidays to canvass. And we don't get enough time now to canvass under the local authority. And it's not the local authority's problem, it's central government, because the elections are all run by central government now. And I believe because they've dropped off where you could get an absent vote by filling a piece of paper in, and somebody would come round your house before the election and ask you to cast the vote in your own home. And the number of people who, hopefully, it's going to be a good day tomorrow, hopefully on that, will come out, and you want to see the people, the age difference there will be. I could say there'll be a lot of people who will be over the 60 plus, but the youngsters should be thinking, and they don't, do they? Like somebody said the other day, I don't know when it was, I don't know who it was anyway, what do you think about when you're young? You don't think about anything. Your mother and father look after you. You've got a roof, you get fed and whatever. You never think of a pension, do you?
So tell me, when you were canvassing then to be a commissioner, I mean, when you started, when did you first become a commissioner?
And you could say that. I think it was 89 or something like that. Okay. It must be a long time ago
well, when you were first canvassing and walking around, I mean, did you feel apprehensive knocking on people's doors and saying, I'm the candidate?
Yeah, the difficulty is, and this is the problem with people, it's a two-way street. Yeah, people used to ring you up and say, or used to know me and say, well, you're standing there, what do you feel? I said, I can't promise everything, and you can't until you get in there and find out what's money's available, what's the rate situation, and what's your priorities, like the fella just been on before that said, the clean of the town, the villages and stuff like that. But I don't think, and I'm having a go at government all the time, is central government helps out. I've still got a thing coming forward in Onken there where the minister has to sign a document to say that when we can't do certain things, the department have to do it, or we're stuck. And I've said it before about road gullies. If we have what we call a non-runner, which is a gully that's non-running, right, the DOI are supposed to come out and do it. There's one in Onken. It's been going on for 6 months, never mind the bus shelters and the telephone box. There's a lot of things to do, but I would encourage people, don't worry about who the candidates are. Go to the polling station. You may see one of them. Just say to them,
that's a very good point. That's a really good point. Any respectable candidate is going to be hovering around, or they'll certainly have representatives, so you can actually have a chat. Go there half an hour early and have a chat.
Yeah, And it's not the first time I've ever been told off. I've got to say, there's a lady who lives in Barrule Drive. She won't mind me talking to her. When there was a by-election in Onchan about a year ago, she rang me up and left a message on my phone and said, you've never called round. I always vote for you, but I'm not going to do it if you don't call round. So I had to call round and tell her it was a by-election. And she rang me up a couple of months ago and said, you're standing in this election, I want you to call round. I spent a lovely, 2 or 3 hours with her. She's 90-something plus, and she said, you get me a vote or get me to the polling station, and that's what we want in the island.
All right,
mate.
Thanks for calling today.
See you,
good to hear from you. That's, of course, David Quirk, who is a commissioner in Onchan. There is no election in Onchan, so we're not breaking any rules. Elections are in Castletown, Douglas South, Patrick, Peel and Ramsey tomorrow. We will have reporters out and about, and you can listen tomorrow from 6 o'clock on Manx Radio. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Howard called in talking about the bees by post, and I just wanted to follow up on this and just let you know what happened. Members of the public, and that's you, are being reminded that the importation of bees from the UK is subject to a blanket ban, which could result in a hefty fine if it is broken. Now, Howard called a couple of weeks ago and said he saw an advertisement from a UK company that offers solitary red mason bee cocoons for sale by mail order. Now, bee populations around the globe have been affected by the deadly Varroa virus spread by mites. Because the Isle of Man doesn't have it. Our bees are world class. They're Olympic standard. If there were a bee class in the Island Games, we'd probably win. We export our bees. They're that good. Now, the Isle of Man's official bee inspector, who doubles as an advisor on bees and beekeeping generally, is Harry Owens. And this is Harry Owens talking about, well, it'd be foolish for anybody to attempt to bring bees to the Isle of Man.
That's honeybee, bumblebees, solitary bees, or whatever. And it has a fine of £1,000. But one of the things would be, if they did send it by post, I would suggest that our post office would then get in touch with DEFRA, who in turn would then destroy them, which would be an awful shame to do that, such a thing. So the cocoons they're talking about, usually the minor bee goes down about a foot or more in the ground and forms this cocoon where it puts eggs, etc. in, and the bees, that's at the back end of the summer, and in the spring they'll emerge from the ground as a bee. Their fertilizer properties are brilliant, and in fact there's 150 different, as far as I know, subspecies of solitary bee within the British Isles. I don't know how many subspecies in the Isle of Man, but we most definitely have got the minor bee here. I don't think there's a need for bringing them in, actually.
But of course the point is it's critically important that the island remains Varroa free.
Yes, whatever disease free we need to be, because we are actually unique in the world, and there's very, very few places that can have the same status as we have. We've got the EU status as such for Varroa freeness, and there's a couple of areas in the west of Scotland that are free of it, but bringing Varroa into the Isle of Man would be catastrophic, because the consequences from doing that would be, when it first arrived in 92 in the UK, it decimated an awful lot of bees. It's recovered now, but to do such a thing would be absolutely foolish.
There he is, Harry Owens, the Isle of Man's official bee inspector, and belatedly, happy birthday to Harry, who was recently 90 years of age. £1,000 fine for importing bees to the Isle of Man. It's simply imperative that we remain Varroa mite free on the Isle of Man, so that Manx honey remains, in my humble but expert opinion, the best in the world.
Hi Liz, I see you've had your garage converted. We're desperate for more room.
Yes, come through and have a look. John called Manx Property Conversions. We now have an extra bedroom, but it could be another reception room, kids' playroom or office. They also did our conservatory roof last year. We were so impressed, we got them back to convert the garage.
Wow, I need that. What's their number again?
Call MPC on 450 500. That's 450 500. Or find them on Facebook at Manx Property Conversions.
Did you hear?
Hear what?
Skipton International has a fixed rate bond at 4.4%.
Oh, really?
That's a strong return. How does it work?
Skipton International's based in Guernsey, and with £100,000 or more deposit, you can lock in that great rate, fixed until 31st of March 2026.
Sounds like a smart move. I'll check it out.
For details on all of Skipton's savings products, call 01481 730 730 or visit skiptoninternational.com today. Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the GFSC and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. See dcs.gg.
Meet Jane.
When Dad began forgetting the little things, we knew we needed help. Man Benham walked us through every step.
Real stories, real solutions. Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham.
Manx Drama Federation Easter Festival of Plays. Final night, Friday the 25th of April, 7:30pm. Garden Suburb Theatre London present Holding the Man by Tommy Murphy, an unconventional love story navigating through times of joy and tragedy. For more details on all of the plays, go online to villagaiety.com or call the box office 600 555.
On today's Spotlight, we hear all about the wonderfully fiery Evolden Festival 2025 and more words of wisdom for those hoping to make it in the world of music from Arts Council graduate intern Callum Rowe. Spotlight, crafted by those creative lovelies at the Isle of Man Arts Council and presented by me, H, this evening just after 5:30 and available as a podcast straight after broadcast via the Manx Radio website or your favourite podcast provider. Spotlight, bringing artistic warmth to all who listen.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
WhatsApp of 466 says, I agree with David. I couldn't go to the Ramsey hustings last night, but out of all the candidates, I've had 2 leaflets and not a single visit. How am I supposed to know who to vote for? So perhaps I won't bother. E in Ramsey. Do you know if polling cards have been sent out? We haven't received any. Can we vote tomorrow? Well, it depends where you are. Many places aren't having an election, because there are contested elections only in Castletown, Douglas South, Patrick Peel and Ramsey North, so the number of candidates didn't reach the threshold necessary for a contested election in, get it, Derby, Lezayre, Maloo, Marown, Michael, Onken, Port Erin, Port St Mary, Ramsey South and Santon in German, Garth, Douglas North, East and Central, Bride, Braddon, Ballaugh, Arbury and Rushen or Andreas. So that's it, only contested elections in those areas. A note in from Penny, who said, if democracy is a machine, votes are lubricating oil, kind of 3-in-1 oil. The more votes you have, the more democracy gets lubricated. The fewer votes there are, then it kind of just seizes up. Very good point, and thanks for the analogy. Voter turnout poor. Maybe most people are content with life on the beautiful and very safe Isle of Man. I think the phrase "okay but could do better" would cover most people. And thank you for that. That's 528. If humans went extinct, the world would carry on without us. If bees went extinct, the world would die, says Paul. How true. They reckon 3 years, isn't it? If there were no bees, within 3 years, there will be no food. Well, I mean, apart from fish. And man cannot live by fish alone, or woman, for that matter. But the bees are... I've heard, by the way, that this company's been frightened off. They don't ship to the Isle of Man. So that's good. However, if anybody's tempted to bring bees across, £1,000 fine. Have you seen the state of some of the garage forecourts lately? A lot of them are, and this is Stewie's word, manky. A lot of the forecourts are manky. What are the petrol companies doing about this, or the owners of the garage forecourts? Maybe we should have a beauty contest for the prettiest forecourt on the Isle of Man. Clarify the voting for Central Douglas. Why no voting cards? Because it's only South June that's voting. That's the reason you haven't got a voting card. A quick question. Why do we have to log on to the government website and confirm that we're eligible to vote? Or is that only if there's any change in circumstances, says Charles. I tried to get onto the government website, but it was asking for login details and password. Also, people are saying that they haven't any calls from candidates, but I know from experience of doing door-to-door collections, a lot of the time there's no answer. People are either not in or simply don't hear, or they got headphones on. Thank you, Charles. Thanks for getting in touch with that. I must put on record, by the way, that every time, and we've done lots of elections at Manx Radio, I have nothing but admiration for anybody who puts themselves up for a public vote. It takes bottle, it takes initiative, it takes a lot of courage to do it. And so for everybody who's on the ballot tomorrow, I wish you well. I hope all goes well. And I hope you get something out of it. I hope you get what you want. And a note in from 842 says, Andy, look, if candidates can't be bothered canvassing, why bring fines for people who don't vote? It's what they do in Australia. In certain votes in Australia, if you don't vote, you get fined. I think something like $20. It's not thousands. But you get fined purely because they think it's a civic duty. Not something that's optional. You have to do it. You have to vote. I just wonder what you think about that. Is that a bit too heavy-handed, or is it worth reminding people that it is a civic duty to vote, to take part in democracy? It's an old aphorism, but of course people have died. People have spilled blood to get the democracy that we have here. And perhaps we just take it a teeny-weeny bit granted. M&H should consider sponsoring heritage items such as horse trams and site access. Maybe we need to reinvent tourism and local use of sites like the open-air theatre at Peel Castle. I saw some Shakespeare at Peel Castle a few years ago. I've been there watching Shakespeare in terrific weather and also when it was peeing down with rain. And they continued and everybody sat and got wet through. I don't think I got rid of that flu for about a month. Could Manx National Heritage not consider transport a key site? We're talking about Cregneash here. Our heritage site seems to have been deteriorating over the years. The Grove Museum and Cregneash risk being forgotten heritage, says John. Well, we've not heard from Manx National Heritage, and apparently, I mean, from what Michelle Haywood had to say on the breakfast show this morning, there may be a sliver of hope for the number 28 bus service to the Calf. We'll see. Douglas is a huge area, so if you're not in when they call, it's not their vote. But do they leave a little slip to say, I call but you were out? If people don't turn out, do they get in automatically? I have 5 manifestos and 1 calling card left. Whereabouts are you, Val? Oh, I see. I only knew on Tuesday of the meeting as one of the candidates had a notice in a window. But other than that, I wasn't aware of the meeting. I had tickets for a show, so couldn't attend. I'll go and vote, though, based on personal knowledge of some and on the manifesto for others. My main point of concerns are uneven pavements, which are hazardous, 4 electric charging points on East Quay. I've never seen more than 1 car at any time on the charging points. Dog fouling is unbelievable. There should be fines, and a lack of floral tubs. Thank you very much for that. Earlier, a Peel Online notice said the election for electoral registration districts Peel 1 and Peel 2 will be held at the Corran Hall, Derby Road, Peel. A formal notice of a poll will be released once it's made available by the Cabinet Office. So that was from 222. The 8 Peel Commissioner candidates seem very much on the ball. They've been very astute about the needs for Peel, says 222. Well, I mentioned we've offered interviews to everybody. So there's been, and if you go to the Manx Radio website, go to our news website, there is an election site there. So you can look through. Is there a box to take a vote of no confidence? I don't think so, but you can spoil your paper. You can just not vote for anybody or just draw a drawing of Kilroy on it or something. I'm in Peel Main Road and nothing through the door. So by that token, it's a bit of a flop. It looks like the government's been sold a pup with the new Liverpool terminal. There's a clue in the name, Half-Tide Dock. And if Michelle Hayward's going to use the lack of staff to drive the buses to the Seine, how about using the 24 MHKs they could drive the mini skipper buses on a rota system. It would save thousands as they're all getting paid. Francis, you haven't got a hope. But then again, more work being done on the TT course at Glen Helen. I wish they take a bit more notice and care of the rest of the Isle of Man instead of polishing the TT course. We're all getting fed up. Well, 490 is getting fed up. I mean, if you like the TT course, presumably you want it in the best possible condition. Harry said, Andy, I've just had a message from the steam packet saying our boat's going to be delayed by 2 hours next Monday due to tidal conditions in Liverpool. Just to repeat what a lot of people are saying, the tide has been coming and going twice a day for longer than boats have been invented. Somebody's not doing their job in keeping the silt clear. I was under the impression that they know what the tides are for a long time in the future. Yeah, you get annual tide tables, don't you? That's knocked us back now for an onward journey. It just shows you can't plan ahead getting off the Isle of Man anymore, boats or planes, and need to book the extra day either side. That's another expense, says Harry. We'll hopefully hear more detail about what's particularly going wrong, but the linkspan by Princess Half-Tide Dock apparently is silting up. And another message which just regarding the polling cards, forgot to mention it's Douglas South, so we are due to vote, says Jilly. Well, you certainly should have one, and I'm sure if you get in touch with them, they'll organise something for you at the last minute. So thank you for that. A note in also to say, today is a very, very big day, and I want to mark it. You've heard it earlier on today, but it bears repetition. It's the 80th anniversary of the deadliest aviation accident to ever happen on the Isle of Man. On this date in 1945, 80 years ago, 31 men were killed when a US military aircraft crashed into the side of North Barrule. Some of the relatives of those men have travelled all the way from America to pay their respects at the place where their loved ones died. It's been organised by the Manx Aviation Museum. Ivor Ramsden has done it. Relatives were up the hill at 10:15 this morning at the time when the plane crashed. 4 from America, 2 from Northern Ireland, and 31 men were killed when a US military aircraft crashed into the side of North Barrule. It wasn't any sort of battle mission or anything like that. It was only they were just travelling it towards the end of the Second War. Some members of the US military's ground crew were given permission to have some days off. They flew from Ridgewell in Essex. 31 men boarded a B-17 Flying Fortress for the peaceful mission and took off at 8 a.m. At about 10:15, the aircraft was approaching the northeast coast of the Isle of Man. A local farmer noticed the plane was flying in very low from the coast and recalls staring at it in terror as it was flying straight towards North Barrule, shrouded in mist. Moments later, it disappeared into the fog, and the farmer heard a terrific explosion. All 31 men were killed instantly. They were taken back to England. The American military cemetery is just outside Cambridge at Madingley, in the largest ever funeral that was there. The visibility was very poor at the time. The definitive cause of the crash was never, ever determined. In 1995, a permanent memorial was funded by Mackle Parish Commissioners, including a plaque and a flagpole, and every year since, the Manx Aviation and Military Museum has raised an American flag at the site to honour those who died. Today, to mark the 80th anniversary, relatives gathered there for a moment of reflection at the time of the crash. So if you're one of those relatives, thank you for coming to bear witness to this horrible event. A grim, grim, grim reminder of the dangers of aviation. And also, just a quick reminder, not only tomorrow is it voting day, but it's also at the Western Wellbeing Centre in Peel, a chance to go and find out more about the Human Tissue and Organ Donation Act, known as Daniel's Law. When now once implemented, anybody who's over 18 who hasn't opted out and is not in an excluded group will be seen to basically be in. and will be considered as an organ donor. Now, if you want more information, tomorrow, 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, there are 2 sessions at the Western Wellbeing Centre in Peel, with people who know all about it. Just a quick message just to get to. One says, speaking of democracy, it seems that... CC. Yes. No. All you have to do, CC, is simply call. If you get hold of the phone, call 66 13 68. You can just call and come on the air straight away. Well, perhaps Albany Tours could have a shuttle service. You'll have to ask Nigel if he's going to organise a shuttle service to Craignish. I tried to pay my rates online, but it wouldn't accept my card. Luckily, no problem at the post office. Well, I'm glad everything is working well today. I'm really glad. And a note from 222 says Shakespeare is on again at Peel Castle this year, August the 2nd. Much ado about nothing. Andy, Bill says, doesn't have Peel Holdings have a contractual obligation to deal with the silting at the pier? We obviously pay them a lot of money. Well, I don't know. I mean, in Liverpool, isn't that bit of land actually ours? We've got a long lease on Princess Half-Tide Dock, so I'm guessing we may be responsible for the silt and the clearing of it, but we'll find out more about that. That's it. Thanks to Ben and Alex, and I'll be back tomorrow with another Open Line.